All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever thought about how we make sure the packaging around our medicine, like a plastic bottle or a rubber stopper, is actually safe? How do we know nothing funky is getting from that container into the drug itself? Well, that's exactly what the ICH Q3E Guideline is all about. So today, we're going to take a guided tour of extractables and leachables, or E&L as you'll hear it called, and get you totally prepped for your exam.
Here's our game plan. We'll start with the basic lingo, the core concepts you absolutely have to know. Then we'll walk through the official roadmap for managing risk. After that, we'll figure out how to tell high-risk situations from low-risk ones, dive into the nitty-gritty of testing and some key thresholds, and finally, we'll wrap up with the must-know takeaways for your exam. Sound good? Let's do it.
Okay, first things first. Before we can talk about anything else, we have to get our vocabulary straight. The entire world of this guideline spins on two words: extractables and leachables. Seriously, understanding the difference between these two is everything. If you nail this, you're already halfway there.
I love this comparison because it makes it so simple. Think about making a cup of tea. Extractables are everything that could possibly come out of that tea bag. Imagine you boiled it, you put it in strong solvents, you did everything you could in a lab to force every last chemical out. That's your extractables profile. But what do you actually care about? You care about what's in your cup. And that's the leachables. They are what actually migrate into your drug under normal storage conditions. Leachables are the reality. Extractables are the possibility.
So we know there's this potential for stuff to get into our drugs. How do we handle it? Well, the heart and soul of Q3E is a formal, structured quality risk management process. Now, if you've studied ICH Q9, this should ring a bell. This isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's a scientific, step-by-step roadmap to ensure safety. So let's look at the map. It all kicks off with risk assessment. This is where you do your detective work. First, hazard identification. What are the potential bad actors, the chemicals we might be dealing with? Then, risk analysis. How likely is it that someone will be exposed, and how bad would it be if they were? And finally, you pull it all together in a risk evaluation to make a judgment call.
After you've sized up the risk, you move into risk control. This is the "what are we going to do about it" phase. You put measures in place to bring any unacceptable risks down to a safe level. But, and this is key, it doesn't stop there. See how everything flows into lifecycle management? This whole process is a loop. It's a living, breathing thing that you have to keep an eye on for the entire life of the product.
So, to boil it all down, just remember this three-step dance. You assess the risk, you control the risk, and you review the risk. Assess, control, review. That is the mantra. If you remember anything about the process, remember that.
Okay, that sounds great, but how do you decide if a product is high risk or low risk in the first place? It's not just one single thing. The guideline gives us this really helpful multi-factor matrix that looks at everything from the drug itself to the patient who's taking it.
Let's make this real.
Let's imagine two very different scenarios. First, picture a standard oral tablet for an adult taken for just a few days. That's pretty low risk, right? Now let's swing to the other end of the spectrum, a liquid drug that's injected directly into the bloodstream of a premature baby every single day for the rest of their life. Wow, you can feel how the risk just skyrockets. The route, the duration, the patient, every single factor cranks the dial up to 11. And your E&L strategy has to reflect that intensity. Okay, so you've figured out your risk level. Now it's time to actually do some testing. But here's the thing, you're not just looking for anything. The guideline establishes two incredibly important thresholds to guide your work, the SCT and the AET. I'm telling you, for your exam, you absolutely have to know these inside and out.
Let's start with the big one, the Safety Concern Threshold, or SCT. This is your fundamental safety line in the sand. It's based on toxicology, and it represents a daily dose of a chemical that's considered to be a negligible safety risk. Think of it as the ultimate safety net.
But here's the problem. The SCT is a dose, like 1.5 micrograms per day. You can't just tell a chemist, hey, go find anything above 1.5 micrograms per day. That's not how lab equipment works. So that's where the Analytical Evaluation Threshold, or AET, becomes our best friend. The AET does the math. It takes that SCT dose and translates it into a practical concentration, like parts per million, that you can actually program your instruments to look for in your specific drug product. It's the SCT made real for the lab.
This right here is the perfect analogy. The AET is not a safety limit. Please remember that. It is an analytical tripwire. If any unknown impurity shows up in your analysis above this AET value, alarms go off. It doesn't automatically mean the drug is unsafe. What it does mean is that you now have an obligation to stop, figure out what that chemical is, and do a proper safety assessment on it. It's the trigger for more work.
And we use these thresholds in a few different kinds of studies. We do extractable studies, usually early on, to get a list of the potential bad guys. Then we do leachable studies on the actual final drug product to see what really shows up over time. And sometimes, if a leachable study is just not possible for technical reasons, we might do a simulated study to get as close as we can.
So this isn't all just theory. Let's put a face to the name. This is BHT. You've probably seen it on food labels. It's an antioxidant, and it's used in all sorts of plastics to keep them from degrading. And because it's so common in manufacturing materials, it's one of the most frequent flyers we see in E&L studies. It loves to migrate out of packaging and into the drug product.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've covered a lot of ground, so let's consolidate this into the absolute most critical points. If you're prepping for a test, this is the stuff you highlight, you circle, you put a star next to. These are the big ones.
Takeaway number 1, everything, and I mean everything, in this guideline starts and ends with risk. Your entire approach has to be proportional to the risk. That high-risk injectable for a premature baby, it's going to get the full exhaustive E&L workup. The low-risk oral tablet, a much more streamlined, justified approach is appropriate.
Number 2, and I guarantee you'll see this on a test somewhere, do not mix up the AET and the SCT. The SCT is the toxicological safety value. The AET is the practical lab trigger. It's the tripwire. Hitting the AET doesn't mean failure. It means your investigation has just begun.
Number 3, you're always trying to build a bridge between your extractables and your leachables. Why? Because if you can show that your harsh extractable study found 20 potential compounds, but your real-world leachable study only ever found 3 of them, you can build a very smart, very efficient control strategy based on that data. It's about working smarter, not just harder.
And finally, our last key takeaway. This is not a one-and-done deal. Your risk assessment is a living document. If you change anything significant about the product, the plastic supplier, the formulation, the manufacturing site, even the recommended dose, you are obligated to go back and revisit your E&L assessment to see if that change has impacted the risk profile.
So I'll leave you with a final challenge to really lock this in. Think about that risk matrix we saw earlier. How would your entire E&L strategy, your studies, your thresholds, your controls, be completely different for an eye drop that someone uses every single day for decades compared to a simple tablet they take just one time? If you can walk through that comparison and explain the why behind each decision, then you've truly mastered the risk-based thinking at the heart of ICH Q3E.